Jake?
Yes, sir. I'm Jake, Rattlesnake TV. I have been on the Crucible. I've been on the Crucible before. Is that where we did the debate last time?
It is.
Yeah. But yeah, first time here. I didn't think I was going to get invited. I was getting a little bit self-conscious, to be honest, Jimbob. Didn't think you were going to invite me, but happy to be here.
Oh, why is that? I mean, that was like more like a bar conversation we had. People were upset. They wanted us yelling at each other, and it just didn't happen.
I wouldn't have invited you, Jake, if it makes you feel better.
That makes me feel a lot better. Thanks, man.
Right.
I appreciate that.
I got your back, Jake.
Yeah, so as you guys know, the style is just pretty open. We can start with anything. Jake, before you were talking about, there's this clip going around. I actually can't find it right now, but you may have seen it. It's just a bunch of like chicks, younger girls dancing, and they're crunking and doing all nothing we haven't seen in a basic environment of college. But what is happening with that? There's something different happening, right? What do you think is? Are they just making it into something, or is it something?
I think it's something. I think it's innocuous in itself, the actual act of young girls dancing because young girls are going to dance. I don't think that's the major problem. But when I see things like this, and I'm interested to know what you guys think about it, I think it begs a deeper question, like a societal question. And that question is, well, what is the sort of ethics that are meant to guide our society? And why do people have this repulsion when they see this sort of thing? And I think part of it is the fact that young girls, 20, 21, 22, they're meant to be these sort of vessels of purity and joy and happiness. And to see them like that, thrusting their hips and doing all of this degenerate behavior, I think that there's this repulsion that people get because people recognize when they see that is antithetical to how a Christian American culture should be. And they kind of all look like Midwestern little cowgirls with their boots on. And yeah, I think that there's a deeper cultural question there to be asked.
Right. So, Sondsol, are we just all like the new boomers who are like, the squares and they're like, these damn hippie chicks, whores? Is that what you hear from your side? It's just like,
well, I mean, it totally depends on what these girls are doing. I have no idea what clip you're talking about.
I'm going to try to find it.
Yeah.
It's actually very, like Jake said, fairly innocuous considering what else is on the internet, right? But yeah, I guess they're just making it sort of the embodiment of the current culture, which I think we all argue at different times is just the remnant of an egalitarian fucking fart, enlightenment fart, I call it. And I think people are just going, what are we supposed to be doing right now? It's like this liberation thing that we keep doing. It's not just peculiar to women. And I think that's what we're really pointing to. So just imagine a bunch of chicks dancing and crunking, and they're like, I'm free, basically. That's what they're saying with their face and their eyes. And we're wondering, this isn't really telling us where to go. And I think everyone's starting to ask, where do we go and who can provide the ethical system to point in the direction?
For me, I think that there are a lot of things right now that even for my libcuck brain, I look at it and I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. There's no way, like there's been all the drama with Vosh and the Lolicon stuff. There's constant dramas with
Lolicon Queen.
Yeah. You've seen the music video for that, right?
I'm gonna pass on seeing that one.
Okay.
But, I think that there is a lot of stuff that people should either keep private or there should be social pressure to keep them from talking about that shit publicly because it is fucking weird, especially like the Lolicon stuff.
What is this? I have no idea.
It's like you don't want to know, man.
Yeah? It's just based. Okay. You can look it up after, but it's pretty gross.
No, there's this fat, ugly communist named Vosh. Mm-hmm. And he got caught.
Is that the thermodynamics one that I posted?
Yeah, that's thermodynamics guy. Yep.
Okay.
And he got caught with Loli on his computer. So he's been making the big leftist apology tour, where he kind of takes responsibility, but at the same time says no, not really. I think that this is fine. Basically, that's basically what's going on.
Yeah.
And Sondsol, you're saying there's nothing that's shocking we're getting to a point where it's some thresholds are not shocking people anymore. And our side of things, the square traditionalists are clutching our pearls, right, and going, let's maybe reintroduce some barriers here. And you're agreeing that where is this line is a good question, right?
I think that for me, I think there's a little bit of both, because I think that on the internet we have this culture where we overshare like a motherfucker, and we think that basically, they had the whole don't kink shame thing going on for a while. But there's also a quote, I think that it was Socrates or someone in that same time period, and it basically boils down to children these days don't respect their elders. They're constantly drinking and being bad influences on society, yada yada yada. I think that there is just something in the human condition where we look at our past and we think that that's the way that things ought to always be, or we look at our past and we think it was significantly different than it is now, right? Because
remember that Socrates was living in a democracy, though, Sondsol.
I don't think that has literally anything to do with what I'm talking about right now.
I think it does, Sondsol.
I don't think so at all. But
I think so.
What I'm trying to get at is people have like recency bias, and they always remember the best parts of their younger years, and they always kind of implant that onto the current day. When there really isn't that much of a difference, all things considered. Yeah, so I guess like for this specific video, I think that, yeah, I would have to see it. But there are some things that I would say are a little cringe.
I would push back a little. I mean, came out, 2 weeks ago, there was a couple of dudes banging each other on the top of a train in public, and I'm wondering if the boomer who goes, back in our day, if maybe they do.
Back in our day,
I'm pretty sure public sex is always
sex inside of the Capitol building.
That okay? They just didn't have the video cameras.
Right? No. Well, that's our point. Is that if we want to push and pressure degeneracy back into the dark corners where it belongs, if it were to happen, we would still say don't do that. But there's something about this crossover that the internet seems to inform the general public that, well, it's already in the public in that sense. So what's the big change between seeing some clip of this happening on the general internet and someone doing it on the train? I think this is a problem. Like, the public space is now both physical and digital, and that seems to be a distinction.
Are you saying that like seeing two guys fuck on a train in person is going to be significantly or like exactly the same as seeing it on the internet?
No, I'm saying seeing it on the internet, I'm saying might lead someone to believe, well, there's no real distinction between the internet and the physical reality. And if they accept it in one space, maybe it is accepted. Maybe we should give it a shot. And it seems in some of these European nations, they're getting a little more liberal about, walking people on leashes. And you're like, dude, this is degenerate. And they're like, well, I picked up his shit, so what's the problem? And it's like, well, we're talking about a fundamentally different paradigm. So there might, I agree with you that we look back and we have a bias. McDonald's and Burger King were once better, right? And we go, oh, remember when we had to blow in the game, and we really appreciated when it worked in the Nintendo. But this seems to be different. We're actually talking about degradation, not just change. And I would think, is there a distinction, Sondsol, from your view, between degrading or just changing? Because you're arguing, well, it's just changing, and so everyone thinks their time was better. But I'm talking about, no, there might be actually, I believe that there's fundamentally degradation. There is demoralization. It's getting degenerate. Specific, not just change, degenerate.
I think that especially in the area of the internet that we inhabit, we definitely see that a lot more, especially with the kinds of audiences that are interested in this kind of content. You're going to see people blow this sort of shit up way more. It's really hard for me to parse whether something is actually a huge societal problem and whether something is relegated to this side of the internet, especially the more that I go out and I actually touch grass, I talk to more people, I start moving into like a more career oriented thing, more rather than like an hourly wage job type thing. I start to see like most of the people in the real world don't fucking know about any of this shit. They don't know about they don't know what lolicon is. Half of them don't watch fucking anime. They don't care about anything that happens on the internet. But when it comes to the culture that is in this area of the internet, I do think, and this is something I've been moving on a little bit, the unbelievable amount of like coomerism and the unbelievable fucking shit that people will put themselves into to see some titty is unfucking real, right? Like I just want to like grab people and shake them and say like, go to a fucking coffee shop, talk to a girl in real life, right? And I feel like if people were able to have more real life connections and real life relationships, not just like romantic relationships, but friendships, whatever, I feel like a lot of this would kind of naturally go away on its own, because when you're in these areas of the internet, right, and that kind of behavior is reinforced by other coomers constantly trying to get the e-girl to post titty, you think that it's completely normal.
Well,
I think I would kind of take the opposite stance in terms of the fact. I think if I am correct, you're saying that if we stop talking about this stuff, the degeneracy would kind of go away because people would stop focusing on it. No.
I think that the internet and the real world, while it is at the most like integrated that
it's ever been up to this point, use your words.
I'm using them right now, Andrew. The real world and the internet is the most integrated that it's ever been up to this point. But I don't think it's as integrated as we think it is as content creators or viewers in this space.
Right. You're saying it's overrepresented. You're saying it's overrepresented, like most things, because
to our attention. Yeah.
Right. Well, I want to go back to Andrew's point. Andrew, go ahead, and because I want to bring that back. It was kind of just like looked at for a second. Our system itself, like what is our system fundamentally based on? If you said, well, they had democracy then, now, it is valid to question the system, which all societal happenings happen upon, right? If it's liberalism, if it's egalitarianism, if it's some enlightenment approach to just liberty itself, I think Andrew might has a point here that that's the goal.
Hang on, before we get into that though, if you don't mind, Jimbob, I would like to point out that I did tell Sondsol years ago that he's going to get married, he's going to settle down, and he's going to turn into a staunch right-wing lunatic conservative who says all of the time, everywhere that he goes, I can't believe all these fucking coomers and these degen scumbag motherfuckers, right? That is Sonsol's fate. He doesn't know it yet, but that is Sonsol's fate.
Hey,
I did tell you that,
I'm already
confirm,
there.
Right?
Yeah, I was a lot more liberal with my takes on sex and people's viewing of shit about a year ago, but just the man, I don't even know how to verbalize how fucking weird it is seeing how these people operate. Like, that's because you're off in the real world again, right? And you remember how the real world works now, which is that most people aren't fucking crazy lunatic coomers, right? Most of them aren't, and so. All Sondsol is really saying, I think this is what you're getting at. I'll try to paraphrase it because you're half retarded, and I'll try to make your point a little bit better for you. So all he's saying is, in the real world, people aren't a bunch of degenerate coomers, generally speaking. And so, they get up, they go to work every day, this and that. So he's saying if you have more aligned interest towards that, that's who you're gonna attract. You're gonna have those types of friends. You're gonna have those types of people who have families, this kind of thing. They're not gonna be perpetually online, literally selling their souls so that they can watch some three-titted chick or some chick with two vaginas. That's basically what he's saying.
Right. Okay.
In so many words, I think that like most of that is getting to the thrust of what I'm trying to say.
Sure. So are you now flirting toward that? Maybe there is something about decency laws and maybe even blasphemy laws.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No.
What?
That is something I'm not in favor of. I think social pressure.
How do you battle it then?
I think social pressure is something that should come back on this sort of stuff. Like if you're jerking it to fucking Tony the Tiger porn on the internet, and then you're going around and bragging about that, I think people should shame the fuck out of you.
Isn't a law a social pressure?
No,
it's not. Are you sure about that? How is a law and the threat of punishment not a social pressure?
Social pressure would just be like the threat of like being ostracized possibly from like a social group or like a friend group for doing something really fucking weird or really fucking bad.
Yeah, I call that jail.
Well, I mean, that would be one way to pressure someone away from doing something. However, I'm an American and I believe in the First Amendment. And I think that freedom of speech is a really cool thing, personally.
I mean, not really. It's like, it's okay. Like, it's okay, right? It's not great, though, Sondsol. It's okay.
I think it's really great.
What's so great about it?
What's so great about it? I think that you can say the things that you want to say without being thrown in prison.
Yeah, but I mean, not really. They just like if you have wrongthink, though, they can basically do the next best thing, which is just cancel all your credit cards and cancel all your bank accounts.
Should there be a line though, Andrew? Should there be a line where we say that people are allowed to say a certain thing? Because surely we don't want to be like China, for example, where they've got a social credit system where you can not get a bus if you criticize the government too much on Facebook.
We're pretty close, though.
Well, the thing is I mean, you're right. Okay, the First Amendment is one of the few, a person being able to have some kind of right to express themselves, that even if it is just a social conception, I think it's pretty useful as one. The thing is, though, is it's not really applied. And so, like most rights, I don't really give a shit about it because the truth is that it all moves over into private power anyway, and under private institutions, they don't give a shit. They don't care what your conception is of your rights. They don't give a shit. They just will throw you off the platform. They'll seize your finances. They'll do all that shit. So I'm not sure. I'm not really sure where the First Amendment line should be drawn because I'm not really sure that it's applied to anybody anyway. With the second the public space moved from the town square into these digital spaces, it doesn't seem like the First Amendment even exists anymore to me.
Yeah, I would say though. In terms of like I spent some time in Thailand last year, for example, and they've got one law where if you criticize the king, you get 10 years in jail or something like that. And
I bet nobody criticizes the king.
Well, they do, and they get imprisoned for it. And that's a big problem.
That sounds stupid. I wouldn't criticize the king if I was going to get 10 years in prison. That sounds dumb.
But the premise shouldn't be there in the first place.
Why not?
That in that culture, if you criticize the king, you get 10 years in prison. Well, because then the king becomes uncriticizable, and he's not God. He's a human being who's fallible.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Should people be able to criticize God?
No, but God's God, though. That's blasphemy.
Oh, yeah, right. That's
God's perfect.
Wait a second here. Hang on a second. So we're going to make the delineation here that we can't criticize God. What about atheists who don't believe in God?
Well, I mean, it's blasphemy if you criticize God. I don't think you should be able to. I mean,
which one?
You can if you want to.
Is it British? But
I think that it's immoral.
Criticize Krishna?
No, because he's not real. It's bullshit.
Can we criticize? This is where our conundrum comes in, right? It's like if a person thinks that Satan is God, can I criticize that person's God? I think I had better be able to.
Well, it depends what the ethics of the culture are. If you live in a Christian culture and then you worship a Christian God, then it should be immoral to criticize that Christian God. But if you live in a Christian culture,
I mean, what about lawful?
Krishna is bullshit, then that should be fine.
Yeah, but I would already think that it's immoral to criticize God, but that doesn't really push a question. Yeah, but that doesn't really push the question of whether or not it should be legal to criticize God. And this is the question, right? So you're kind of saying in this point, look, if we have a king, I want to be able to criticize that son of a bitch, right? But don't you dare criticize God or you're going to jail, right? So the question is it really me who's having a problem here with the threshold of the line, or Jake, is it you who's having a problem with the threshold?
Well, I wouldn't say that you should go to jail for it. I think you should be able to. For example, if I had kids, they wouldn't be able to criticize God. Well, they would be able to, but you're not able to in my household, or else there'll be punishments of some sort. And I think that there should be some sort of social punishment when somebody criticizes God. It shouldn't be something that we can do flippantly.
Well, if you're a king, the whole kingdom's your house, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But then it's how does the king enforce his rules in that house, though? That's the question.
He calls 1-800-HINCH. What do you mean? How else would you do it? You call 1-800-HINCH. The thugs show up with the clubs. They beat the holy shit out of you and straight to jail, right?
Yeah, but I think that's not the correct way to do it, though. And I think that we should both be able to recognize that God is God and then man is fallible. So it's God over man, and then man is inherently fallible. So if you have a leader who rules with an iron fist, then if they're making like dreadful mistakes and if they're not guided by the right ethics, then that could be absolutely detrimental to a culture if they have unmitigated power.
Are there a lot of people in Thailand, Jake, who like this law?
There are a lot of people who have pictures of the king on their bedside table and in their restaurants. And I think that they would say that they like the law, but I think that they would be pretty scared of the law.
Yeah, no, right. I get that.
And actually, last year, there was an election in Thailand where they elected a slightly more liberal government who wants to get rid of it. So I'm not sure if it even still exists.
Who wants to get rid of the criticize the king law?
Yeah.
I'm sure the king didn't like that, though, right?
I wouldn't imagine he did.
Yeah, he probably wasn't a big fan. But the thing is like, here's the question. The question is coming down. A law like that, for somebody who's in charge like that, is probably to control slander, right? You have national upheavals, things like this. It's very easy to take a prominent political figure, slander the shit out of them, destroy their reputation, anything that you can do. It makes sense to me that a monarch would have such a law in the books. Hey, if you're trying to slander me, right, with your untruths, you know, your ass goes to jail. You say, wait a second, doesn't seem very fair. That doesn't seem correct. Like, what if you are a crazy fucking lunatic, right? What if you're some kind of Looney Tune? Well, here's the line, right? The line is, it's their shit, right? And who are you to make the determination if they're a Looney Tune or not? Maybe you're the fucking Looney Tune. You're trying to have a Marxist revolution like they did once, you know what I mean? So the question to me is, I'm not sure that you shouldn't have a law necessarily saying you can't criticize the king. I'm not convinced on that. I remain unconvinced.
Yeah. Well, the question of whether or not blasphemy laws or something else would be inevitable seems to be unanimous that they are inevitable. And so the only question is who's informing the king or the household. So Jake, your household, like Andrew said, the kingdom is the king's household. The question is only who's informing the blasphemy laws, not whether or not they'll exist. It seems that they're inevitable. Even if you say scrap it all and you get anarchy, that's just the starting ground for the house building again. And so I don't think we can get away from blasphemy laws or these kinds of things. The only question to me is, what's the best, most coherent system to inform these things? And obviously Christian
blasphemy laws are inevitable.
Yeah.
Didn't we used to have blasphemy laws?
Yeah, you changed the standard.
They're pretty awesome.
So if we had blasphemy laws and then we got rid of them, how does that mean that they're inevitable?
It's a vacuum.
The same way, remember how we had alcohol once and then we got rid of it?
Mm-hmm.
And then it came back?
I don't think that was inevitable.
Wasn't it inevitable?
I don't know if you can logically pull that train across.
I think the question is, like, let's say an anarch. It's similar in my view that if an anarchist says, let's get rid of the government, I'm arguing in the same way that what you call a government, a group of even men deciding what to do on the land once the government's gone, is a vacuum, and someone's going to stand in and make a new rule. So the same way man makes new laws, they will make new code for blasphemy, and how to enforce it might change, might vary, but that element, whatever is built, is going to have some sort of standard of ethics and norms that it's going to be expected and it's going to be enforced. And in this case, blasphemy laws still exist. It's just that we've given the code over to a bunch of subjectivists and leftists who have an ever-changing ethical paradigm, right? Of just, arbitrary, you're not making me feel good. So it's like, why would we let them run with it? If it's seemingly inevitable, we should just take it back as Christians and apply our own ethics and blasphemy laws if they're going to exist anyway.
Because I feel like if I'm not wrong here, because I haven't done any research into blasphemy laws because it's just never been a topic that I've cared about, but isn't that just unconstitutional in the United States? Hasn't that been?
Fuck yeah.
Haven't there been rulings?
Yeah, Constitution sucks.
Oh man, I didn't realize there were so many anti-American fucking people on this podcast. I thought I was talking to fucking conservatives.
Yeah,
what happened to the fucking freedom-loving, fucking eagle fucking shirt wearing American flag in the background?
Sondsol, you're just entering.
We found out when we gave you guys freedom, all you did is go and have gay sex with it.
On a train. That's
all you did. So we were like, wait a second. Okay, hang on. We're rethinking this whole thing. We're rethinking this whole Coomer freedom bullshit here.
Here's a problem. Here's a problem.
Fewer Christians as time goes on, and there are more and more people. So it feels like the idea that it's inevitable that we're going to make Christian blasphemy laws anytime soon, or that
he's well, hang on. When he's talking about blasphemy laws, think about like hate speech laws. Those would be considered basically a form of blasphemy.
Yeah, I think those are bullshit too.
Yeah. But all it is like this is a thing which we hold to be near and dear in society, and any type of language which exists against it. And we've had these types of laws forever, like the N-word, for instance. If you run around in public saying that, it's probably going to be some severe repercussions. I'm sure that there's some ordinances which are localized somewhere where that would be considered disturbing the peace, or something of this nature. So that's what he means when he's talking about blasphemy laws, is a thing which is held sacred or near and dear to some subset of society, where if it's defamed or in some way spoken against, there's severe repercussions for that. That's what that really is alluding to.
Right, and someone's going to take the reins. Someone's going to take the reins every time.
Yeah, but just like the idea, and like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Christians are coming back in a big way, but like based off of everything that I know, I feel like there are fewer and fewer people every year that self-describe as religious or very religious, and there are fewer and fewer people every year that go to church. There are fewer
and they don't
fewer
breed.
People.
Yeah, they're not breeding. So,
that's right. They don't breed. Yeah. So what's the consequence? What's the consequence of
smaller percentage of you guys out there?
Yeah, and a smaller percentage of those people who breed leads to what being left over. If X doesn't breed and other X does breed, Sondsol, what do we end up with?
Okay, wait. Square this circle for me. All right.
You don't square circles, Sondsol.
I know that it's a fucking joke saying, Andrew. All right, so light up a fucking fifth cigarette. All right,
it's my sixth, you piece of shit.
Gotcha. Nice to know that you're keeping count too.
That's right.
So
they're my lungs, Sondsol. They're my lungs, and you're blaspheming them right now. Anyway, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't say anything about black people or black lungs. All right, so we have more and more people. The percentage of religious people is shrinking every year. How does that square with the idea that eventually, right, that the Christians are going to outbreed everyone else? Is it just going to happen like the year 2500?
Let's make the assumption that atheists have one kid, okay, and that the religious have three generally, right? This is not the case, but it for the purpose of demonstration, it's fine.
I understand.
Okay, now if the religious are having three for every one that atheists are have, even if you peel off every fourth or fifth child from the religious, and the religious are more likely to follow their parents' religion, you would agree that that's true. There's no doubt that that's true. That's why people are born in Christian nations are more likely to be Christian. People born in Muslim nations are more likely to be Muslim. Then over time, gradually, you'll see the whittle down of the one ideology versus the other, right? There's really no way around that.
How was there an increase in atheism or agnosticism in the United States when, 30, 40 years ago, we were an overwhelmingly majority Christian nation?
Well, overwhelmingly majority, you have 90 to 95% who self-identified as being Christian. But those who were in depth and practiced their religion, that was a completely different story. Right now, you see people falling away from Protestant churches, and they're moving more towards what you would consider extreme versions of the church, more traditional. So, let's say Catholicism, Orthodoxy, or even more base Protestant churches. Now, the ones who aren't, that's true, they move more towards agnosticism and atheism, but their reproduction rates drastically decrease when they do. Why? Because nihilism can't give you an ought for why you should breed. So, in other words, Sondsol, if you can have the reproductive act without the reproduction,
I understand.
Why wouldn't you do it?
Well, because I assume that there are some women out there that think that childbirth like 5 or 6 times probably hurts a lot more. So,
well, no, that's not it. It's just that they don't have children anymore until they're 30, because what ends up happening is they go off and they do school, and then they run the cock carousel. They do.
Yeah, I understand all the red pill talking points.
But no, it's not a red pill talking point. Hang on, this bears out. Do you know what the average age of marriage is for women in the United States?
Fuck it. Right now, it might be like 30.
So when do you think when do you think these women are having families then? About 30?
Probably about 30 or maybe 35.
And do you think they're past their best childbearing years at 30?
I don't know the biological reality of all this stuff. This stuff is not interesting to me whatsoever. What I'm trying to say
they are. Well, what I'm saying is that a 21-year-old is probably more fertile than a 30-year-old, right?
Probably. So this is my point, right? Because you're bringing up all these like, well, we have 3 kids for all these atheists, and eventually we're gonna outbreed them. And
no. I'm just giving you an overview of why it would be that if you had a 3-to-1 odd, and even if you peeled off every 4th, that it's inevitable that Christians will simply outbreed you. And there's no choice in that.
I don't know. Number one, if there is enough pressure within like Christian communities to do that, to breed themselves into the majority again. And on top of that, I don't know if you guys have the numbers, even if you start now, to do that by the time I'm dead. All right.
Well, the Amish double their population, right? What, every couple of years?
If you now there's 3,000 of them. What?
No. Well, this is a good case in point to 3,000 of them. There's a good case in point to show you, though, that the people who are much more religious and adhere more to the religious practice tend to have more children. There's no doubt that that's true. I don't
disagree with that.
The same thing happens when you have Hispanics who come up from south of the border. You would agree that they tend to have much larger families than domestic Americans. You yourself have quoted studies stating this. But the reason that they do is because their family life is based around Catholicism. That's why. It's based around Catholicism and the fact that they don't believe in birth control and this type of thing, because Catholics don't believe in that shit. So they have 9, 10, 12 fucking kids, right? Why would you assume then that if the domestic population, the atheists who are below right now replacement rate, they're below replacing themselves, Sondsol, right? That Christians would not be able to bridge that gap. Of course they're going to. So over time, now this is going to take a long time. This isn't something which is instantaneous, but over the course of 70, 80, 90 years, you're going to see a drastic difference in the demographic between religious and non-religious just based on who's having kids.
Well, I mean, you can think that if you want. I think that we're kind of moving in one direction that we've been seeing play out for like the past 100 years. It could change. It could continue to go the same. Neither of us knows whether that's going to happen or not. I would just think that we're probably going to continue on the trend that we have been, unless something really crazy happens.
Which is hang on. But I want you to think about our trend here. Okay, so this isn't crazy to you. Do you agree that right this second, the United States is below replacement levels for its birth rate?
I'll take your word for it. I wouldn't doubt it.
Okay, yeah, it is, and it's decreasing. Would you agree that that's true as well? You can Google it if you want.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so then this means for us to sustain our population, we would need to have immigrants come in, right?
Yes.
Those immigrants who come in are going to be much more heavily religious, likely, than the domestic population, right?
I'm sorry, say that one more time. Sorry, I got to...
Yeah, the immigrants who are coming in are probably going to be more religious than the domestic population, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if that's the case, they're more religious, they're having much more children than the domestic population, you have to rely on more and more immigrants coming in order to replace your current population, just like Japan. You're talking about a nation which has always closed its borders to other people. They're talking about, for once, bringing in immigrants because they don't have enough people to take care of their elderly. No, South Korea isn't even going to exist in 100 years, Sondsol. They're at less than one person. One person per 2 in reproduction. That's insanity. That's less than one person per woman. So populations like that, they collapse.
Yeah, I just Googled it right now. Even with all of the mass immigration that we've had from Central and South America, a decade ago, or 2007, 78% of adults in the U.S. described themselves as Christian. And in 2021, it was 63%.
Why don't you tell me what the birth rate looks like between those two time periods?
It's probably
tell me which demographic are having the babies.
Probably Hispanic people.
Probably the religious people. That's right.
And yet the percentage is still going down while no religion is going up.
Oh, it doesn't need to. It's a self-correcting problem. You understand?
If there are more Hispanic people coming into the United States and they're having more children,
yeah,
and the percentage of people
the domestic population is not having children, even if more of the domestic population who identifies as atheist than religious but has less children, it's a self-correcting problem.
I don't know. This sounds like cope to me, but hey,
can I give one argument?
How is that cope?
Andrew, can I give
what
one?
you need? Go ahead, Jake.
So the only thing that I worry about in this regard, I see what you're saying, Andrew, and I do see the same pattern happening. But the only thing that I worry about in that regard is that if we have a largely atheist culture, for example, when the kids go to school, if they stop learning the Bible and start learning about how to be basically gay, then like what happens when the kids from these religious families are being brought into these public schools and are being indoctrinated? Yep. Do you think that like as they get older, they sort of they will filter out towards atheism, and that actually the population won't become more?
Yeah, so it does seem to be the case that atheism or secularism can be alluring and allure people out of Christianity. However, most people who grow up with a single religious doctrine tend to keep that doctrine, and that's
they come back. Yeah, they come back.
They tend to keep that doctrine, and you're starting to see trends in society now where people are homeschooling more and more, and that is on the incline. And so I would suspect that as
Christianity instead of
indoctrinating them into that fucking communism, right?
Yeah, totally. Indoctrination is another inevitable thing.
Which indoctrination center should I prefer? Mine or yours, Sondsol?
I don't think that anyone should be indoctrinated.
Why not?
Well, then why are you sending them to fucking public school then?
Yeah, but why not? Why not? I don't understand that. I don't get this position.
All of your liberal progressive bullshit came from what you were trained in public school, Sondsol. Right, all of it.
Right.
Absolutely not. If anything,
oh, really? Where did it come from then?
I'll tell you off stream. Okay?
Came from the trees.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, fair enough.
Why? Yeah, but why is indoctrination wrong? Why is indoctrination wrong? I don't get this position.
I believe that we should give people the most factual,
doesn't mean fake. It doesn't mean false.
Hold on.
Indoctrination doesn't mean false.
Hold on. I think that we should give people an impartial reading of history, of science, of as close to it as possible. I understand that there's always going to be some implicit bias depending on who is writing it and what set of facts they're looking at, but we can try our best, right? I think that we should try and do that sort of stuff and then allow people to come to their own conclusions. I think that's probably the best way to go. But I mean, I'm on a panel with 3 people that think that Christianity is going to become king in the United States sometime in our lifetime. So
not in our lifetime.
We should be indoctrinating people.
No, nobody said that.
10 generations.
Made it up. But not only that, but Sondsol, what do you mean? Is patriotism bad?
Is patriotism? No, not necessarily.
But it's indoctrination, Sondsol.
You've been indoctrinated by the Constitution.
No,
you've been indoctrinated by. Yes, you have. You're like a boomer now. Actually, you're like my rights, my Constitution.
I know that you don't know me, but I started off as an America-hating giga commie.
Yeah, you started off as soon as you were out of public school. You started off as an American-hating giga commie.
No, when I came out of high school, I was a retard. Okay,
your mic's too loud, Jimbob.
Yours is too.
But
is mine too loud? Okay. Yeah.
But I started off as a giga-commie when I started off on streaming, right?
That's true.
I started learning, more about the world and how the world works, and about economics, and about philosophy, and about different political ideologies and organization. And I went from hating the fuck out of America and thinking that it would be pretty base if America balkanized, to now I really fucking love the United States. I used to think that why don't we just get rid of the Constitution? But now I like the Constitution. I think that the protections that it gives us as citizens is really cool.
Are you pro Second Amendment, Sondsol?
I am pro Second Amendment. I've always been pro Second Amendment, though.
That's true. You have. Well, let me ask you this, right? Just out of curiosity, when you say that you're pro First Amendment, do you think that the federal government should be able to regulate tech companies and tell them you have to enforce the First Amendment because that's where the new town hall is?
The First Amendment is a protection against government compelled speech. I think that the case, like with the Florida and is it Texas as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Florida and Texas Supreme Court case right now is interesting. I don't think that it is a First Amendment violation for them to ban people, but I do think that the social media company stuff that's going on right now, I mean, fuck, I'm banned off of Twitter like 3 times, perma-banned now. I'm banned off of Twitch, perma-banned, right? For like extremely mild bullshit things, right? But
well, you pissed off the T's, right?
Well, don't piss off the T's.
Yeah, did you piss off the T's?
That's one group that I pissed off. All right. The other group would be the communists. All right, which is why I hate.
But you're really pissed off the T's, Sondsol.
I pissed off one specific subset.
One specialty.
Right?
Specialty.
Yeah, specialty. But
it doesn't seem like those T's like that freedom of speech very much.
No, they don't. Which is why I don't believe in communism or anything like that.
Oh, well, the T's. The T's don't like your freedom of speech either.
Well, there's a lot of them that are communists.
Isn't there, though? Isn't that weird? It's like, I wonder where do you think they got all those ideas from? Do you think it was from school?
Actually, most of the people that I know that have transitioned fell into commie communities after they realized that they were trans. It's because those are the communities that were hyper accepting of them. So I don't think that the communism makes people gay. I think that the gay people are accepted by people who are communists because of a bunch of different reasons.
What are those reasons?
I mean, conservatives fucking hate gay people and trans people. So I mean, the liberals.
Hang on, hate's a strong word.
I've heard the way you talk about them.
Hang on, can we use a different word like maybe loathe? I'm kidding, Sondsol. Go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead. Using
but you know what I mean, right? There's more negative feeling towards trans and gay people on the right? Liberals are going to be a mixed bag, but communists, especially like the new wave communists that came after the 60s, were very accepting, right? And so I can see how that would be enticing to people who are, being shit on by people to the right of them.
So you're saying that communists and leftists use the mentally ill in order to propagate their propaganda? Is that what you're saying?
Listen, you don't want to hear my opinion on conservatives and mental illness, all right? Because you guys.
No, I do. I'd like to know how it could be. Hey, I'd like to know how it could be fucking possible that you think.
The last thing that we can talk about, okay? But like, you guys are like supporting a guy that has 90 criminal fucking indictments, and you guys still think that this is like the best person, most moral person that you guys could put up on the fucking Republican docket. All right.
So who cares how many criminal indictments he has?
I think that you guys are retarded for that.
Why?
Because you guys had a pick of like fucking 2 dozen.
Sorry, I hit the button when you say retarded.
I was looking at everybody's mouth like, who the fuck is making that noise?
I was like, is that me?
It was internal.
Sondsol, I feel like you don't. I feel like you're not going to be a Trump guy.
No, I'll never be a
Trump
guy.
Are you riding for Biden?
Values.
I'm a hardcore riding for Biden.
Oh God,
you riding Biden, eh? Why? What do you love about him?
I think that the way that he was able to get through a bunch of bipartisan legislation over the past 4 years has been pretty cool. I think that most of that legislation was really good. I think that his ability to try to cross the aisle, at least most of the time, is a really good and needed thing in the country. I think the biggest thing that's holding us back is the fact that we're so divided, so it leads to a split Congress, a split Senate, and then hyper aggressive presidential campaigns that if you win them, then you're gonna, try and fuck over the other side as hard as you can, and if you lose, then you're gonna try and fuck them over in a different way. I think that that's the biggest thing holding America back right now. So I think that someone who can negotiate with people on the other side and isn't just like, hey, once I get in office, I'm going to fucking rape these motherfuckers until they just can't even fucking govern anymore. Like, I feel like that's where we need to go, in a much more chilled out environment so that we can actually get legislation passed. That's what needs to happen. I got like 5 minutes, by the way.
Do you support democracy?
Hang on, how much time you got?
Like 5 minutes.
Why?
Because I told you at the beginning of this, I have to go to like do schoolwork because I want to get a full ass career.
Indoctrination.
Yeah, it's indoctrination.
What are you learning?
I'm studying political science.
Do you have to? Do you have to work tomorrow?
I do have to work tomorrow.
Do you have to work? When's the last time you called in sick?
It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, but if you called in sick and I gave you $200, could you stay for another 2 hours?
I'll double it.
Ooh, that's a good deal, Sondsol. And you're not going to get a good job with political science anyway, so you might as well take the money up front.
I've already got some things lined up. I'm gonna have to leave in I'm gonna have to leave in 5 minutes, man.
What about $300, Sondsol?
If I get $300 now, but then I lose my job, I lose however much the lifetime earnings that I would have.
It's not even on the internet that you said you'd call in sick. You're fine. There's no trace of it.
I mean, I'm not going to give you $300, but I was just curious what you would sell yourself for. That's all.
You know, if you dropped me $1,500, I'd quit that job right fucking now.
For $1,500?
Oh hell yeah!
That's not a very good job. If you're going to quit it for $1,500,
no, it's not a good job. It's not a good job.
Why do you even care? Just call in sick.
Because I actually have fucking responsibilities, unlike most of the fucking losers that stream on this website. All right.
Well, that's fair. But here's the thing, Sondsol. If you call in sick, right, I will send you $200 right now.
I can't do it, man. I appreciate
that's $100, dude. That's I mean, there's no way. There's no
I'm
possible
make
way.
More than $200 at work tomorrow. Okay.
You can't. Then why would you quit that job for $1,500?
Because I don't like it that much.
But that's, I mean, you're making damn near $1,500 a week, if 200 a day, right?
Just about.
The Sondsol math is not adding up in the end.
I'm trying to get the fuck out of this.
This is how we're going to use these last 5 minutes.
All right.
All right, Sondsol. All right.
Hey, I really do appreciate you guys having me on, though. It's been a fun conversation. If you guys have this again, I'll try and make it and not have to leave an hour into it. But
all right.
Anyways, I'll catch you guys later.
Okay, cool. Thanks.